Welcome to the Primal Fusion podcast. This is where we interview the best practitioners, therapists, and coaches from around the world to discuss the often sensitive, provocative, and sometimes emotionally charged hot topics around holistic wellness, fitness and performance, pain and injury rehabilitation, sexual health, relationships, spirituality, and conscious awareness. I am your host, Sarah Gustafson, co-founder of Primal Fusion, director of Women's Health, and CEO of Women Who Raise Hell. I want to thank you for listening or watching, and as always, drink responsibly by consuming at least half your weight in ounces of clean filtered water every day, and get some damn rest. I have an amazing and special guest today. Her name is Vidya McNeill, and she's an integrative therapist and shamaness that helps women understand themselves and recognize their gifts so that they fall in love with themselves, become embodied, and feel empowered. We are talking about the Excitable Woman and the key characteristics of excitabilities, and Vidya will explain to you why it is so important to understand these characteristics and their spectrums of expression. So if you've ever been called sensitive or dramatic, then you might be an excitable woman. If you have ever been called an overthinker or too analytical or too energetic or too happy, you might be excitable woman. All of the above carry special, unique gifts that are often too much of something for some people, or a lot of people, and women are often feeling shamed for these natural tendencies of excitabilities that we often never learn how to support and nurture the positive aspects of these gifts. So let's jump in with Vidya now. I hope you enjoy this conversation and learn as much as I have so you can feel a renewed sense of empowerment to express yourself authentically.
Hi everyone. It's really great to be here with you and with Sarah. Thank you, Sarah, for the opportunity to share my work.
Oh, thank you for being here, because this is one of the most, I think, impactful things that you've shared with me, and you've shared a lot with me over the years as my teacher, mentor, and as my therapist. And so this, the excitabilities and the 5 characteristics, as you broke them down for me, was just so illuminating for me to learn as you had taught me, and we'll get into that. And so talking about this with you again, like we did last year, I'm really, really happy to share this with everybody once again, because I think this helps more than just women. I think it helps parents, practitioners, educators, care providers, employers, partners, all of them. So, but women especially, in understanding how to recognize the gifts that they are. So without further ado, what is an excitability? What's an excitable woman?
I love that you're asking me that question, because an excitable woman is really passionate. She's intense. She's also incredibly sensitive. She's juicy. And she's just, fully alive. And that's what an excitable woman really is. And excitabilities are really amazing, because if you don't know what they are and how they're operating through your life, you're going to think something's wrong with you, because you're going to hear other people tell you what's wrong with you. Why aren't you like XYZ? Why can't you don't have to get so excited. You don't have to, calm down. You're going to be hearing these kinds of things either from your parents or from partners, or other people will gossip behind your back. She's XYZ, what's wrong with her? And, that doesn't really serve us if we're here to share our own gifts, to share our own passions, and to show up with the fullness of ourselves. So this is one of the reasons why I love to have the conversations around excitabilities. So one of the things that is really important to understand about what excitabilities are is that, number one, it's a form of neurodiversity. And what does that mean? Neurodiversity, well, we have heard a lot of it in the last few years, specifically in relationship to autism. It's a form of neurodiversity. So, we have a spectrum, right? On one end, you have very dysfunctional autism, and on the other hand, you have kind of an Asperger's type person who's kind of the genius, who's the math polypod, and well, excitabilities are like that too. They're part of the spectrum, and so we can fall at any place on there. Now, with the excitabilities, they show up through our nervous system. They inform our nervous system, number one. So how does those excitabilities show up in our nervous system? Well, there's 5 main characteristics that we want to pay attention to, and that is your emotions, of course, because we typically tend to react rather than respond when we have an emotional intensity. Then we have a sensuality. Some of us are really sensual, so we experience our senses in a much more intense fashion. So we feel things more deeply. We see colors more vividly. We get distracted if there's a lot of clutter, etc., etc. We have excitabilities that affect our imagination. So some of us can like tell stories and imagine outcomes where other people are just like, I can't see it. I don't, And so a person with that kind of excitability has a real gift, usually around storytelling or creating environment. They can see an outcome. And their gift is that they can bring it backwards and bring it into manifestation. Then there's the intellectual part of excitability. And in the past, in the field of giftedness, they would just focus on that one aspect of the excitability. And that would be, oh, that person is really smart. Oh, she learned how to read really early. She can do math. So the emphasis there was a lot on the intellectual with ignoring the other thing. And then the last excitability is the psychomotor system. So we have, like me, I have this abundance of energy that runs through my nervous system. So I have great endurance, great stamina. I tend to have a wiry body. It takes a lot for me to put on weight. Also, I don't like sitting a lot. I have to be moving. So the person with this kind of excitability, you might notice that they may pace when they're talking, or they need to be moving when they're talking. Like I talk with my hands a lot when I start going. It's a way to discharge that kind of the nervous system excitability through me. You will also see people who talk incessantly. We all know some of our friends and family members who just like to talk a lot. That is a form of that excitability coming through.
Of the psychomotor? Okay. And so a lot of people will, diagnose them as just like being full of themselves or not interested in other people, or
they'll say, oh, that person's so ADD or so ADHD, the hyperactivity disorder. And that's what they'll do with the kids. And they say, oh, but you may outgrow it when you get older. So this is why I like to talk about this, is because we don't need to drug our kids. We need to understand what's going on within them, what's going on in the nervous system, so we can help channel the energy rather than dumb it down so that you're normal, homogenous, with somebody else's standard of what's normal. But that's not normal to drug our kids because they have this hyperactivity. We need to work with our teachers in our school systems, and thankfully there's a lot more awareness now in the school systems that can help our children if they have this kind of excitability. They may give them a bouncy ball to sit on. The teacher may give them permission to pace in the back of the room. It's not that they're not paying attention. It's just that they need to be moving in order to learn.
Right. Yeah, and that's hard for a lot of kids who are just forced to sit for 6 to 8 hours a day.
That's right. It's very, very hard. And it's just heartbreaking to me when, I mean, it's a challenge. Definitely, this is one of the challenges of this particular expression when it comes through the psychomotor system. Mm-hmm. Now, if it comes through the intellect, that person may become really bored. They like lots of different kinds of stimulation. If the information that they're receiving is kind of dumbed down, or they're asking questions and the person that they're asking questions of is irritated with them, mm-hmm. right? And tells them, I already answered your question, but you've already asked your question 5 different ways.
Yeah.
That's an example of intellectual excitability. They're the real creative people. They want to see all different sides of something before they can come to a conclusion. They don't just take the information in at face value. They want to explore it to its depths and to its heights. And so that can also be a challenge for parents when the child responds with, why? 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 I have a granddaughter who's very excitable, and everything that you explain to her, it's why. She just has this keen intellect, and she just wants to know why, along with all the other excitability. So it becomes really, really challenging. And you just have to learn how to breathe and move through it and recognize what it is that you're seeing, because a lot of people don't know what they're seeing. They just see it as a problem that they want that child managed so that they can go on.
Right. And also when they have different ideas about things or see things differently than you do. Because, I mean, and what's interesting to me about the different characteristics is that some of them can be, I think we talked about this before, is that they can sort of be combined. Like some people can be just intellectually excitable or sensually excitable, but some can have 80% intellectual, but a little 20% sensual or psychomotor, or just a little bit of others. And that's where I guess it could be very important to understand and very helpful to understand these characteristics. I mean, as a parent or as a woman especially.
And that it's part of a spectrum. Okay, just like you said, you might have 80% over here of intellectual excitability, 20% over here of sensual excitability. You might have 50% over here of the imaginational excitability, right? But what you're going to see is 100% of the emotional reactivity. And the emotional reactivity comes usually from other people's judgments.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so when you're a small child and the parent or the caregiver or the teacher is like yelling at you and screaming at you, what's wrong with you? Why are you doing this? Calm down. Don't ask so many questions. Just do what I say. That child begins to feel and take in that information. Remember, it's all information. We're socially constructed beings. We don't operate in a vacuum. That child will take that information in, and she will start to experience shame over time. It may not happen right away, but by the time that child hits her puberty years, you will start seeing real manifestations of shame manifesting in her body. And when shame starts to manifest, and a reason why I want to bring this up, because I think that excitabilities and shame are kind of like this. Now, shame is a human experience. We all experience shame at some point or another. And thankfully, due to the work of Brené Brown, who's really teased apart this very difficult emotion that we have different responses to the shame. The shame is automatically, when we feel it, it's an emotional reaction in the body. And we have 3 ways that we generally deal with it. We want to avoid that shame. So we want to avoid the shame situation or person. And so that person can become avoidant, withdrawn, cry. I was that kind of child. Mm-hmm. I cried all the time. You know, my self-talk was, they don't understand me. They don't really care about me. That was my self-talk when I was a child. But that pattern got set up early. So even as an adult, well into my adult years, I had to learn what it was that I was really experiencing so I could learn how to manage it. On the other hand, some people will just get angry and blow up, and get very explosive, and then they'll push back and they might become aggressive, right? And then you'll see conduct disorder in children, not just oppositional defiant disorder, but you'll see this conduct disorder where they start to act out, they get really angry, they don't know how to contain their anger, so they start punching holes in the doors and the walls and kicking other kids and hitting other kids. These are oftentimes they turn into bullies because they feel so powerless inside, so they have to find some way to power themselves. And then the third way that people deal with shame is to people please. Okay, to keep the peace. Well, if I tell that other person what they want to hear, then they're going to think nicely of me, and then that might be the teacher's pet. It might be the one child that kisses ass to their parent, or a family member, or somebody in the neighborhood or whatever, just so that they can get some attention. So being aware of how shame operates and how our excitabilities are. So ultimately, why this is really important is because excitabilities also are inherited gifts. This is what I like to call them. They're inherited gifts, and they'll show up differently for every child who may have an excitable parent or grandparent or someone else in the family. And then that's when we also hear, oh, you're just like Uncle Joe. Oh, you're just like your mother. Oh, you're just like your father. Well, if the parents don't have a good opinion of each other, that's also going to be introjected into the child, right? And set them up for all sorts of problems later on. So the shame gets compounded. It's a very complex psychological aspect of who am I? Who am I? It comes right down to who am I as a person? Who am I as a girl, a boy, transgender? Who am I as an adult? Can I do something? Can I not do something? Our beliefs about ourselves.
One of the most, it's so funny. I'm 38 years old, and it's just finding these things out, and going through the Check Institute, working with you, working with Paul Check, and I've made a lot of discoveries over the past 10 years, as you know, but even still unfolding a lot of these layers, it's still even these little things you're like, how is this thing just now coming out? And so when you bring up these three ways that people, the crying and the emotions, that emotional reactivity, and then anger, that emotional reactivity, and then the other one was the people pleasing. And I didn't think that was me until recently. Actually, it was Paul Paul Check that pointed it out. Was this pattern that I had gotten into because I was getting so mad at how do I not do everything? Like, I feel like I have to do everything. Like, because if I don't do it, it's not going to be done. And then if I don't do it, I have to spend all my time teaching people to do it or arguing with someone on doing it. And so then it's still not getting done, right? Like, so it's just, right? Like, so how did I get into this pattern? And it just takes you all, he took me all the way back to this when I was 7. And that internal dialogue where my needs were being hushed, my expressions, like my excitabilities were just, that's how I internalized it. In order to create meaning in my life, I was learning in my environment to not do that. That is not creating acceptance in my life. Those around me in my education environment and family environment, it was just not acceptable. So I just needed to learn how to hush that. And then without that, though, in the absence of that, I didn't feel love. So in order to experience love, I had to create some sort of meaning. And so I just made others experience love by just doing what everybody wanted me to do. So I kissed ass. I was the best student ever, kissed the teacher's butt, and made all of my friends laugh by being, silly and making myself look dumb and stupid and making them laugh. And I do my siblings' chores and all that stuff, right? But I didn't realize that all that stuff was just creating a pattern. And now I'm stuck in that pattern. And I didn't even put those two together. Now I'm just in this pattern of like always doing. And that's all just from my excitabilities of really just wanting to be loved and wanting to just be me and who I am and who I am at the core. And it's just me. It's who I am. And that's just, I really like that you pointed that out, because that was a new one we didn't touch on last year, was the emotional reactivities.
And I really appreciate what you're saying right now about, that drive to be loved. Brene Brown says it's our drive to belong. It's more than just fitting in. As teenagers, we want to fit in. As adults, we want to fit into a tribe here and there. But to be truly seen, and this goes back to your personal model of authenticity. Isn't that true? We all want to show up and be authentically us. And we want to be accepted and loved and appreciated and shown affection and allowed for us to be ourselves. Right? And so what happens is, like you said it so eloquently, we put on these masks. We kind of split ourselves into, if I show up in this environment, I put on this mask. If I show up in another environment, I put on that mask. But what I love about being an adult is that in our homes, we generally drop our masks. And that's where you'll see the challenges with our intimate partners or with our children, because then we let it all go and we start to show up with our stressors, with our, inability, our emotional reactivity even, that our family members are like, whoa, why are you being like this? Why are you doing that? And it's because it's your safe place. It's your home. It's your sanctuary. And so, we have to conform so much to society's ideas of what it means to function well. So, that starts so early, that conditioning process starts so early, because so many parents send their kids to preschool, and then, and then there's the whole public school or private school system, and what's acceptable behavior, what's not acceptable behavior. And, in the past, it was up to women to socialize our children. And so the love that we really, really crave is the love of our mother, the love of our father, the love of our parents, the love of our brothers and sisters, that they will still embrace us even though we're what we call different. And it can be a very painful process. So yeah, you're 38. I didn't uncover all the shame stuff until I was in my 50s. Right? I was in my 40s, I was probably in my 30s when I first started discovering about what it really means to be a gifted woman and excitabilities. And I can remember that moment when, because I joined an online, they were doing a study up at UCLA. And so they had an online program for gifted women. And when I was studying at universities in my undergraduate program, my instructor said, you really ought to attend this. I think you're going to learn a lot about yourself. And I could remember just like crying and crying with relief. Oh my God, there's nothing really wrong with me. I'm just different. I have these excitabilities. I have these gifts. It was so relieving that I could embrace myself. And up to that time, I really had a hard time. I was really super avoidant. I just, I didn't want to go out and socialize, and I didn't know how to because the pattern was so strong. So we do look for these patterns. We look for these behavioral thinking patterns that show up in our personalities. Mm-hmm. And, in the field of psychology, they say once you have a personality disorder, or your personality is set. But I really embrace a growth mindset where I say, well, wait a minute. If I'm given the information and I have the right mentorship and I have somebody that's going to feed back to me some of my own misunderstandings, I can allow myself to grow beyond who I was. And I can tell you, I have changed so much in the last, 20 years that to the betterment, because my work sincerely affects the people in a new way so that you can embrace an authentic, beautiful, loving self despite your excitabilities. We don't want to fix them because they're part of your neurodiversity. They're the way your brain is learning how to work with them, learning how to see yourself in a way that is more honoring.
Yeah. And I mean, I can testify to that too. I mean, just even meeting you years ago and working with you personally too. The honoring what really is unique to you as a gift, not a diagnosis or a pathology or something to try and fix. More as looking at these things as once again gifts that you can learn how to take the positive qualities and nurture them, grow them, and then sort of the shadow and negative aspects of them and learn how to manage them. So as you were talking about the emotional reactivities, those can come out as the negative. And so learning how to manage those, we can talk about some of the tools that we recommend in understanding what is your characteristic. Where do you fall in your personality? Are you intellectual, psychomotor, sensual, imaginative? And is your emotional reactivity, does it tend to be more, are you crying, isolated?
Is it anger? Is it more sadness? Does it come out in joy? These are the things that are really important, and I'm just grateful that we have much more emotional intelligence these days, where we're more honoring of the variations of our emotional expressions. But the reactivity is usually split, it's just immediate when we have these emotional reactions. So just as an aside, I broke a tooth the other day. Mm-hmm. It was a crown, and I was eating breakfast, and the crown just like popped out of my head, and it was right in the middle of my face, and I freaked out. And I'm like, okay, just breathe through this, and then, call the dentist, local dentist. Can you just cement that crown back in? No, you have these options. And when he started explaining the options, my eyes started leaking. I mean, there was no way I could control the emotion that was starting to be expressed. But I learned long ago that when I'm under a tremendous amount of stress and I don't know what my options are, my body cries. my body cries. It's not like I'm energizing it with my thoughts, like, like all the fear. What am I going to do? No, it's just the body cries when there's a lot of stress. And so I wasn't embarrassed. I didn't feel ashamed. I just know that about myself. So when you make it an intention to know yourself, number one, who am I? Who am I as an excitable woman? What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? How do I manage myself? Pay attention, develop a mindful mindset to just noticing what's going on moment to moment. Am I breathing deeply, or did I stop my breathing and all of a sudden, I'm holding my breath, which will trigger anxiety and a panic attack, right? So getting to know oneself, that's the number one strategy, is being open to exploring who am I with this form of neurodiversity, and where am I on a spectrum so that I can learn to manage myself. Excuse me, I forgot to turn my phone off. So that's number one. Number two is learning how to breathe through once you notice. Okay, so many years ago, I was in a relationship with a man who would turn on me and literally put me down and say, "What's wrong with you?" Just like my childhood. And I would just burst into tears. And then that would make it worse, right? "Oh, why are you getting so emotional? Why do you do this? Why are you crying? Blah, 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 blah." And I couldn't, and as soon as I'd try to get the words out, there'd be another attack. And so that's what helped me. Brené's work really helped me, was like, okay, I can name what it is that I'm experiencing. Oh, this is shame. So as soon as I could understand what my own shame symptoms were and how my body worked, I could name it to tame it. And this is really, really important when I'm a big proponent of naming it to tame it. If you cannot name it, then you're kind of blindsiding yourself. So as soon as I could start naming what I was experiencing, I could start to breathe and stay present, right? Now, Brené's mantra is don't shrink, don't puff up, right? Don't get mad. Just get present, right? And so I sort of used that, own mantra with myself, where I could just stay present with myself and tell myself, oh, this is shame. You're having a shame response, a shame reaction here. Just breathe. And I learned, I'm so grateful to my ex-partner, because he was the catalyst that could really teach me how to work with myself. Because we can't do it if we're in a vacuum. We can't do it if we're by ourselves, because we're socially constructed beings, and it's all about relationship. So no matter if you have excitabilities or emotional reactions or whatever, you must learn first to know what it is that you're experiencing. And the second thing is that you must also learn how to give yourself self. And that means really tapping into, your own heart, your own soul, your whole being, right? And so I teach this to my clients, and I teach my grandchildren this. You need to breathe and give compassion to yourself. It's okay. You're only having this moment. It's not going to last forever. Yes, it's uncomfortable, but let's breathe together and calm the system down. So one of the other things, as we begin to calm the system down, you need to also work with whatever mind thoughts are running through your head. If you have thoughts like, oh God, I'm so stupid, what's wrong with me? How come I can't handle this? Why am I crying? What are they going to think about me? The whole cascade. then your mind's going to run you ragged and you won't be able to find some inner peace. So you must learn how to speak kindly to yourself. Oh, this is a moment of stress. This is a moment of where I really need to give myself some really deep compassion here. And through this compassion, I can love myself. It's okay, darling. You know, we're going to work through this. Let's just take a breath together. And through this kind of practice, we learn how to become present with ourselves and calm the body down. Now, with that said, that's one technique, naming it to taming it. Now, if you're really feeling emotionally out of control, you can use some of the Polyvagal techniques. So deep breathing, diaphragmatic breathing, will help calm the system down. So I don't know, do you know much about the polyvagal nerve?
I do, but I don't think most of our
So the polyvagal nerve is a branching nerve, and it's our 10th cranial nerve, and it splits and it comes down and it invigorates the heart and the lungs, and then the second branch comes down and invigorates the digestive system in the tummy. Okay, so if you're feeling anxious, that polyvagal nerve is overactivated, or oftentimes it's offline. You know, if we numb ourselves enough, it goes offline. So we need to bring it back online. So if we're really feeling super emotional, maybe we're hyperventilating, our mind is just out of control, it's becoming anxious. One way to quickly shift state is splash cold water on your face. Mm-hmm. Get in the shower, let the cold water on your head. It'll bring you right back into your body. And you have to take deep breaths. Mm-hmm. Another way, if you're in a room and it's not appropriate for you to run out and go, you know, is you can close your eyes and just take your gaze upward with your eyes closed. So like you're rolling your eyes back into your head. And that will help calm the body down really, really quickly. Mm-hmm. So those are a couple techniques that you can use. Anybody can use, and you can teach children these things too.
Yeah, the water and the cold water, the ice, like that coldness is just such a it's an snap you out type of relief, bringing you back, sort of. That works with my girls instantaneously, especially one that has tends to deal with and suffer from some anxiety. So even we'll put ice into a bathtub and she's putting her feet into the bathtub. It just
That's right.
Brings her right back down and in, and
that's right.
Asks for it sometimes. So yeah.
And so, learning and applying, it's one thing to bring the information intellectually, but it's also, okay, applying it, like you said, maybe just jumping into the bathtub and running the cold water. Maybe it's just grabbing some ice cubes from the freezer and just, holding the ice in your hands over the sink. Mm-hmm. But I found that the most effective is understanding what it is that you're truly experiencing in the moment. Instead of just reacting to the reaction, naming it to tame it. Mm-hmm. That is far more effective. Understanding what it is that I'm really experiencing in this moment. And then the third thing is get to know who you are. Who am I? I've said this 3 times now. Who am I as an excitable woman? What are my strengths and what are my weaknesses? We want to go with our strengths, of course, right?
Yeah.
And downplay our weaknesses. We learn to master those weaknesses so we can become integrated. Right. And how do you show up in the world? One of the favorite stories, and many of your viewers and many people online probably have either listened to this story that Renee tells. And she talks about, how she's in lined with her vehicle to pick up her daughter from school, and here comes the monitor that tells everybody that they can go ahead. And the lady came up to her and started saying, "Oh, where have you been? We haven't seen you." She says, "Oh, I was in LA." And she's like, "Oh, who is taking care of your children?" And immediately, Renee said she started to get a little reactive, like, "Oh my God, she's judging me." And she says, "Oh, my husband." "Well, that's not your husband's job to do that." But her husband is a pediatrician. He's their father. Why shouldn't he, right? So she was stuck in these traditional gender roles, the other woman, but nevertheless, her judgments were triggering Renee. And so then she used her technique to name what she was experiencing. And but I thought it was kind of funny when she said the car in front of her moved up 4 inches. So she just rolled up her window and moved up 4 inches and wouldn't look at the woman again. And that was her way to manage herself. But then when she got home, she called up her girlfriend. It's really important that we have people that we can talk to, that we can share what our experience is, what it is that we're feeling with. So she called her girlfriend and she just said, "I had a moment today, and do you have a moment? Because I really need to talk about it." And so for all of you that are listening, it's really important to be able to have your go-to person. It doesn't need to be a therapist. It just is somebody who will put on their listening ears and hold space for you, and not try to fix you, not try to give you solutions, not to placate you, just be present with you to truly hear you, because that is the one thing about being truly seen, understood, is that I can just be with you, no matter what it is that you're experiencing. And I think that's the greatest gift we can give anyone who has this emotional excitability.
That's
because we're so terrified that our emotions will drive people away, because that's the pattern, that's the experience.
Want to be fixed. And so I think that in relationship with a person, in relationships and marriages, that can be one of the bigger conflicts is, the woman is sharing and she wants to be seen, she wants to be heard, but the man, the masculine in the relationship, who may not necessarily be the man, but he just wants to fix it. When he's been given a problem and he sees that his partner has a problem, like he just wants to fix it. He wants to solve that for her, and he wants to just be seen and heard. And that's really important. I just wanted to point that out because often that's where a lot of that goes wrong. And a really funny, which I'll link afterwards, I'll link this, is there's a funny YouTube, very short YouTube video on this. It's called "It's Not About the Nail," and it demonstrates the woman who has a big giant nail sticking out of her forehead.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
Sitting on a couch talking to her boyfriend, and she's like, there's just like this pressure, and it's every time I put my sweater on, it snags, and he keeps wanting to say, well, like, she's like, stop talking about the nail. It's not about the nail. And, and they go through this whole thing. And then finally at the end, he says, I'm really sorry. That must really suck.
Must really hurt.
And
yeah.
Like, thank you.
Yeah, so it's the empathy that we're really seeking, right?
Yes.
And that empathy allows us to relax and like, oh, thank you. I feel heard. I feel seen.
So much.
So Renee says that empathy is the greatest antidote to shame.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So we have to give ourselves empathy, and we must have a friend who can also hold space and empathy and be compassionate. So, we can like get it out. And my experience working with women is different than men. My experience working with women need to talk. We need to talk about what it is that's bothering us. And that is especially true for excitable women. They need to talk. And, as a therapist and a coach, oftentimes we know we can help our clients, right? And we want to stop them from talking so that we can do the therapy or we can do the coaching. But that actually adds a disservice to the person that we're working with. We have to allow them the space to get it out. And once they get it out and they can hear themselves, oftentimes they will oh, wow, I can hear myself now. It's not just going around and around and around in the head. And so you asked me that question, what do I see with some of the people in our industry? I see that with coaches. They don't understand oftentimes who they are working with. They just see the list of symptoms and they want to address those symptoms and make them go away, and then the person will be fine and that person will think they're a wonderful coach. It's not as simplistic as that. You have to know who the person is that you're working with. And number one, my approach is, who is the soul that's in pain, who is asking for my help? How is the personality formed around this particular soul? What are the active excitabilities if she or he has excitabilities? And how is that pain body gotten so big, right? And so sometimes in some of my sessions, I don't speak hardly at all. I'll just ask a few questions or, nod my head. And because I know it's really important for that person to just get it out. And that might take months. Sometimes it takes years. But eventually I know they're going to exhaust themselves of all of that. And along the way, I give them tips and techniques, and we do the real deeper therapy using more of the shamanic techniques. But nevertheless, with that psychomotor excitability, you will see people just show up and it's almost like they vomit on you just to get it out. And we don't want to interrupt that. We want to allow that to just unfold for them, because at a certain point they'll stop and they'll take a breath. And then as a coach or a therapist, that's when you can interject. And because she's exhausted herself or he has exhausted himself. But especially for women, I see it more for women. They just need to talk. And as social creatures, the way that women are, we thrive in the environment of other women. Men thrive in more of a solo, independent environment, but women thrive when they're in a community of other women. And this is just something that we've inherited as human beings in a female gender through the ages. And so keeping that in mind as well is really important. And you brought up a point about men, they tend to like to fix things, but guess what? When a woman has intellectual excitability, she likes to fix things too.
I don't know anything about that.
Because she has the answers.
Yeah.
So, 20 years ago when I, started doing therapy and I was coaching, and, it was right when coaching first started getting going in the early 90s. And somebody would come to me and the little voice in my mind would go off, I know what to do, I know what to do, I know what to do, I know how to fix this, I know what to do. I wasn't integrated enough as a therapist or a coach yet. I was still new, 20 years ago. I had a lot of intellectual understanding, and I'm a highly intellectual, excitable woman. I love information, I love wisdom, I love knowledge, just like you. But I had that voice going off, and one day I recognized that voice because it was running beneath the level of my awareness. And I like, oh my God, there it is. I know what to do. And so I wanted to jump in to fix it for other people. And I learned, whoa, that is not helping them. Mm-hmm. That's actually a projection of my own excitability.
And it could be disempowering.
Yes. And very disempowering for the therapeutic relationship. And it's not respectful of the client.
Correct. And that's also a form of control. And it's definitely a shadow that is being projected. And, definitely fall into the category of intellectual excitability, which going back, is as young as I was, always questioning, the religion that I was being taught. And I still, even to this day, I really love Christianity and everything about it. But, I really like to dig into it, but always being, having my intellectual excitability suppressed and learning to just go along with everybody and please them and do what they want and make them happy. I almost, once I became an adult, the pendulum swung way the other way, because I got to just burst through the doors and go, now I get to do this. I get to go to school as much as I want, learn as much as I want, collect as many books as I want. And it became an obsession to the point that I was obsessed with knowing everything. And then it manifested in a negative way to where I needed to control everything. I wanted to know what was happening the next minute, the next day, the next week. And I got into planning everything, making lists for everything. And if something changed, I was just beside myself. Like, what do I do? Like, I had everything perfectly arranged, and now it's like a little thing like is tweaked and I can't function. And so that's where it just completely, like, I would become unhinged because I never learned how to manage myself. I never learned how to manage those negative aspects of it, nor understand and embrace the good.
So it's important to, I really appreciate what you're saying, Sarah, because this comes back to self-acceptance also. My energy cycles with my intellectual thirst for knowledge and information. Maybe the sensual aspect gets more triggered at another time, and all of a sudden I just want to indulge myself in my senses and be outdoors and, see the colors or work with stones or, and I used to like beat myself up. Why can't I be a certain way? Which led to perfectionism.
Yes.
So
no, the whole
I consider myself a recovering perfectionist because I saw that through that perfectionism, I was becoming too rigid. I wasn't allowing myself enough flow and flexibility. And I needed, and this is something that's really, I think, key to those of us that have excitabilities, and it's coming back to knowing yourself, is understanding your own rhythms, your own thirsts, as if you will, for whatever it is, like you're also a writer. So I know in your sense, there are times like you just have to write.
Yes.
You have to write, and maybe the dishes aren't done. Is that okay? Yes, it is okay because you're honoring your own flow, right? So with perfectionism, that's also part of a continuum. It's part of a spectrum. And for excitable women, we tend to be more perfectionists than others. Some of us might say in a positive way, oh, you're such a high achiever, you're really on, you know where you're going, etc., etc., etc. But there's different forms of perfectionism as well. You know, the other oriented perfectionist is usually the narcissist.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? She expects other people to do things their way, what they perceive to be the perfect way. And if you grow up in a family where the mother or the father has those kinds of expectations, then the child grows up to be a socially prescribed perfectionist. If they don't do X, they won't get Y and Z because the judgments have already been laid out before them. So they usually that ends up in people pleasing. You will see at that very low end, you'll see a lot of eating disorders, cutting, things like that at that level, because that they can't understand what it is that's driving them to be who they are and what they need to break free of.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So perfectionism is also interwoven in the spectrum of excitabilities. And so being able to embrace yourself, yes, I like to plan. Okay, so you like to plan. That's okay.
Mm-hmm.
What happens when you plan, like you said, and something from left field comes in and upsets your plans? Are you so, can you flow with it? Or are you so rigid because it has to be black and white as an outcome? See?
Yeah.
And so we can work with that kind of stuff. We can work with perfectionism. We learn how to be more flexible. I remember working years ago with a woman who was really struggling with her perfectionism, and I said, "Okay, I'm going to give you an exercise to do." She was like, "Okay, give me the exercise." I said, "I don't want you to wash your hair. I want you to go out with dirty hair." Oh, I can't do that. I can't do that. What will people think about me? Right? So I could see right away that she was so married to projecting a perfect self-image into the world, right? Well, sometimes, hey, it's okay. Are people going to think any less of you because you didn't wash your hair today? That you don't have your makeup on perfectly? That you're not dressed? That, tells the world that you have a lot of money or that you have a sense of style, right? That tells me that you're just reacting to other people's ideas or your ideas of what people think of you, right? So we want to start breaking that up, and it can be uncomfortable. Therapy is uncomfortable. I'm not letting everybody know that there's an easy and fast way. It starts with small baby steps.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we gain our strength and our confidence, is mastering one tiny step at a time, one baby step. But what's beautiful about the therapeutic process is that these steps compound.
Mm-hmm.
At a certain point, you reach a threshold, and all of a sudden, it's like, oh my gosh, I have changed. I have all these tools, and they're integrated. And that's when you start showing up in your authenticity.
And I want to touch therapy too, really quick, because a lot of people that we do work with, to, through some of our programs at Primal Fusion, when we do want to refer them out to an integrative therapist, if there's some things that we feel they need specialized tools and work with an integrative therapist, there's a stigma around therapy. And I just want to say, and you can extend on this, is that therapy, again, there's like this attachment to that word that, again, if you're doing therapy, there's something wrong with you that needs to be fixed. And again, therapy is it's like going to school. It's like school of life.
Yeah.
you're relearning things. You're learning more about yourself. You're empowering yourself. That's what therapy is. There's all kinds of therapy. There's physical therapy. There's cognitive therapy. There's, I mean, so therapy is not a place you go to fix yourself. You go to learn. And so that's just, I just wanted to say, because, as Vidya's talking about therapy, I just got sort of this feeling come up in me that anybody who's watching or may be watching may be thinking about that word in a negative way. And so that is just something that, like, Alex and I always, throughout the year, every year, check in with therapy. We've had therapy with Vidya, and it's amazing. We work with Paul Check. We're always finding great teachers to provide therapy with us to help grow ourselves and teach us, because really it is teaching. And so it's providing tools, because I think a lot of people go to therapy thinking they get to sit on a couch and just talk about all their problems and then write a check and leave. And it's really, integrative therapy is learning. You should be learning something, like concrete tools, right? I mean,
yeah, therapy, it has I think it has less connotation in terms of being a negative thing today than it was 20 years ago. There was a lot of shame around, and this goes back to shame. I mean, bottom line shame, I don't want others to think badly of me, mm-hmm. right? If they knew I was in therapy, they think there was something, mentally wrong with me. And that's the one thing that I want all of you to take away today. There's nothing wrong with you if you're an excitable woman or man. There is absolutely nothing wrong with you having these excitabilities. But it behooves you to learn about yourself and your excitabilities, your strengths and your weaknesses, so that you can actualize yourself. So we want to embody these positive qualities, and we want to empower ourselves so that we can live extraordinary lives, not lives of mediocrity. I mean, some people want mediocre lives. That's fine. They're never going to seek therapy. But therapy, as you said, Sarah, is really an opportunity to learn, number one, about yourself. And therapy doesn't happen without the context of relationship, because all therapy is relationship. Mm-hmm. Not all therapists are the right fit. And if you feel like you want to seek out therapy, it's important to ask around, to interview the therapist. Mm-hmm. Not just like, oh, the therapist is all-knowing, just like a doctor or, a priest or, minister or something. It's not like that. They're a real human being. They've had their own list of challenges. They're still growing themselves as human beings. At least, a good therapist is mm-hmm. always growing and learning how they can be a better human being. And all of my training has been around in the field of humanism, humanistic psychology, and then marriage family therapy, so understanding systems, understanding patterns, behavior, cognitive behavior is just one thing. Dialectic therapy is just a method, mm-hmm. right? So the therapist ought to have a number of tools and techniques in their toolbox, just as a good coach. So what's the difference between therapy and coaching? Therapy unwinds the past to help the person actualize themselves, no matter where they're at in their life, for a future that they can feel really good about. Coaching typically just focuses on a specific, if you're doing holistic health coaching, have people come in, they don't know how to manage themselves and their diets, and so they need help, to understand which diet is going to work best for them, and then they need the coaching how to implement that until it becomes integrated, mm-hmm. right? So that's, the difference between therapy and coaching.
That's good.
In my work, I do both therapy and coaching because I'm also a holistic health practitioner. And it's very important because we can't separate the body from the head.
Mm-hmm.
Many of the psychologists that I knew in the past who have focused only on psychology without a holistic or integrative applications will just focus on the head, anxiety or this and that. But hey, they're not checking the diet. They're not checking how much movement that person is getting. They're not checking if this person has a dream worth living for, or maybe they go for depression. I'm feeling really depressed, but the therapist might not even be checking for, is it really situational?
Yeah.
Maybe you're in a midlife transition. Maybe you're realizing that you're gay or bi and you're unhappy in the, socially prescribed relationship that you have embraced for 25 years and you need to break free of it, right? So, but there's, if you're a Christian and that's really important to your faith, then find a good Christian counselor that's going to, support you in your faith, right? A lot of therapists these days have a real kind of Buddhist approach, right? Where we teach mindfulness, where we understand deeper aspects of the mind and our beliefs, and they're not religious beliefs, right? Maybe they're much more quantum, much bigger, right? And but ultimately in my work, I love working with the person. Who are you? Who are you? And when I ask the question, oftentimes people don't know how to answer because they're answering in all the roles. I'm a mom, I'm a businesswoman, I'm a physical trainer, I'm an executive. Who are you? Those are just roles. They don't tell me anything about who you are. And so coming back and wrapping this all up with excitabilities, your excitabilities are your gifts. And when you can explore them and when you can embrace them fully, to embody them with joy and love and self-acceptance, and you know how to give yourself positive attention, and you know how to ask for positive attention, and you know how to give yourself positive affection and appreciation, and allow yourself to be who you are as this dynamic, unfolding, gifted, excitable person, life gets really beautiful. Life reflects to us every day our consciousness. And my belief is that we're spiritual beings inhabiting a physical form, and that our bodies have so much information. Paul Chek and I used to laugh every single day because we would talk about how people like to be so clever, but they forget about the basics. What are you eating? What are you drinking? That is so imperative. How are you moving? Do you have a dream? How are you making your choices? What 4 doctors are you taking counsel with today? Right? These are the basics. And if you don't embrace those basics, it doesn't matter how much therapy you have, you're cutting your body off despite yourself. So an integrative approach takes all of it together.
Keeping a really good gauge of that's such a good point too, because knowing who are you and knowing how to manage yourself and your excitability and emotional reactivities, that's all great and grand. But if you're also neglecting the basics, right? What good is all of that? What are you feeding yourself? How much are you sleeping? How Are you actually doing what you love to do? That's really what I emphasize a lot of my work on. I mean, when I work mostly with women with the health coaching and their training and performance programming, but my emphasis is on living authentic lives and improving your self-love and your relationships. And I think what really gets me so fired up with that is because I spent most of my life just living so inauthentically. And I had to wear so many masks that it took me so long taking all of them off to figure out when you asked me that question, who are you? I'm like, I don't fucking know. Like, I don't know. And I don't know how long it took you asking me that question for me to figure it out and write an answer. Like, how many times I answered it before you were like, you're not getting it, because I spent so many years putting on all these different masks at school, at church, at home, with friends, with these friends, with those friends. And so when you're mindlessly shoveling food in your mouth and staying up all night or staring at your phone, and you're not living in awareness of your body, and you're not living authentically to your core values, right? Whose values are you living? You're not happy, and you're not
Yeah.
moving your body. You're not putting yourself first. You're not exercising according to how your body should be exercising or being moved. Um, then what is it all for? Like, knowing who you are, like, what this is the vessel, right? And I'm guilty of that. Like, even as a coach, level 3, I this past year, like, my basics went to shit this year, like total shit, and I suffered because of it. Of course, I suffered. I'm paying the consequences, and those things you can let go and totally neglect, and thinking that you're just this high level coach and, oh, I know all those things, you know. But when you forget about them and you neglect those basics, how very quickly the cards will fall, very quickly. And next thing you know, like, you now have to spend extra time taking care of all these things, and basically going back to kindergarten.
Yes.
And but that's what I love about integrative therapy and health coaching, and being able to mix those in together, is that emphasizing authentic living. But that's why I'm so passionate about authenticity, is because when I see anybody not doing that fully, it ignites, it like incites that, it excites me because I feel such empathy with that person or that environment or that group, that I almost place myself in it, and I just want to, like, just don't do this, or like, there's so much, let me just show you, like, the freedom of just being yourself and loving yourself. And guess what, I'm not even fully there yet. Like, I haven't even gotten fully there yet. Like, I know the depths of how much you could love yourself because I've seen it, but I haven't fully experienced it yet. And like, I just want to drag people there with,
Well, I really love what you have to say about that, because our crises become our opportunities for growth and unfolding and learning about ourselves. But there's also a timing factor, right? Mm-hmm. So even though we can explore all these different aspects of who we are and look at that mask and look at that mask, just because we're beginning the process of therapy or coaching doesn't mean that in the next day I'm going to be a completely new person. Mm-hmm. Like we've recognized in our conversation today, there's these patterns, and sometimes these patterns are really deep-seated. So, and they become habits. Mm-hmm. And habits are not easy to change. They take time and patience. And sometimes that's all, the best that we can do is keep providing that kind of feedback and mirror back to our clients that you're doing a great job. So you made 3 steps forward and took 5 steps back, and you took 2 steps, here and only 1 step back, but then you just made a leap over here. These are real life aspects of our life that unfold in their own time. And I'm of the mind as well that healing happens when it's ready, when it's rising up into our awareness. So learning to love whatever it is that's rising up, even if we're looking at it and go, oh, that smells, it stinks, I don't like that, I wish it would go away, I want it fixed, I want to root it out, right?
Yeah.
It's rising up because it's providing information for us. And so if we could just be with that information, just sit with it without having to react, is a real art. And when we can start to do that, then that internal grip starts to relax, because ultimately a lot of our deep-seated wounds and patterns are there to protect us.
Mm-hmm.
And so we can't rip things away, or defense patterns. We can't just rip them out. We have to let them transform. And they transform in love, not with anger, not with judgment, not with scolding. With pure attention, acceptance, affection, allowance, and appreciation.
The 5 A's.
And that's where the 5 A's. And that's where the real healing takes place. So we might need to spend months and months and months on how to give yourself self-attention, or allowance, or bring them all in. It's each person is different. My greatest joy is to be that participant witness to that person's unfolding, because I'm right with you. I'm with you. I'm not outside of you. I'm actually with you in the therapeutic process. When I end my therapy sessions, I don't just forget about that person. They're inside me. I'm processing along with them. I give my clients permission. You can contact me anytime, text me, email me, right, in between sessions. I'm a very hands-on therapist, and I'm invested as a partner in the therapeutic process. And I love working with excitabilities, because that's where I see most people have the most misinformation and misunderstanding about themselves.
And you said, because this is where a lot of clients and patients get,